I want to try to do this real fast here. Because, man, everybody and their brother, it seems like, gets confused at Romans 9, the first 5 verses. Because in English, it's kind of funny. It's written kind of funny. But if you understand Greek, then you can see it just by the words themselves, if you look at it in Greek. And so Romans 9, there's no chapter divisions. Okay, there's no chapter divisions. So what is being said is one big succession from one thing to the other. And you can clearly see, if you just look carefully and look at a few of the Greek words, you can clearly see that the succession of Romans 9 is from Romans 8 about the predestining and the suffering. I mean, and the suffering goes way back to the beginning of 8. And it talks about, the groaning and the suffering. And chapter 8, the predestination, starts here in 16. And verse 16, chapter 8 of Romans. And this verse goes, this sentence runs all the way to 29 and 30, where predestination is mentioned. And then right after that, right before what we call chapter 9, what we can say about all these things, who's against us. Hold on a second. For it is written, for we shall be killed all day long as sheep to the slaughter. There's the suffering. Suffering, they're being persecuted by the Jews, Paul's fellow kinsmen, which is what he's going to say at the beginning of the next chapter. Because I am persuaded neither angels, principalities, nothing can stop us, even though we're being slaughtered, being led to the slaughter. And it's the Jews that are doing it. The Jews report them like to the Roman government, and that's how they get put in jail. They did that to Paul when he went to Asia Minor. They did it to Jesus. It's the Jews, the fellow kinsmen, which you see in the next verse. And here's what he says. I tell you the truth, aletheia, the truth I say. For Christ, my sun edo, my conscience is bearing witness, the Holy Ghost, pneuma hagios. I have great heaviness in my heart. I wish that I could be Anna. It's the Greek word titheme. That's a form of the Greek word titheme, which means to place. And Anna means up, like placed up. Placed up. Apo, out. Placed up out of the way. Concerning the kinsmen who are trying to kill him, huper. Concerning the Adelphi, the brothers, who are trying to kill him. So he's saying, I'm not lying, this is difficult. Like even me, Paul, the most boldest of them all, I wish I could be placed up out of the way of this. On account of, concerning his brothers, the Adelphi, ton Adelphi, placed up out of the way from them who are trying to persecute him, which you saw back at the end of chapter 8. For some stupid reason, even me used to read this and think, well, that's just kind of weird. It's like Paul is trying to say he wishes he could go to hell in place of his Jews. That's dumb. It's dumb on its face. Paul is not wishes himself he could go to hell. No, he wishes he doesn't have to be persecuted. Even him, Paul, I'm not lying. He says, I ain't lying. I'm not lying. Not my conscience. Not lying. I wish I didn't have to go through this. Concerning my kinsmen. Concerning huper, the kinsmen, the ones that are trying to get him, the ones he used to be. He used to be one of them. He still cares about them. But he wishes he didn't have to go through this sometimes. I mean, Doesn't that make sense? Can you see that? Isn't that simple? And then the whole rest of chapter 9 follows from that, because it follows from chapter 8. Why is that? Why is this suffering? Why does he have to go through it? Because it's the will of God. Not him who willeth or runneth, but God. And the examples in the Old Testament he gives, why it's the will of God. I mean, it was Esau and Jacob. It was decided before they were born. Pharaoh, God decides. He just sets the whole thing. He determines the whole thing. That's why he has to suffer. Even though he wishes he didn't have to sometimes. Do you see that? Like, it's so simple, it's ridiculous. But people that like free will, worship free will, and that's what they do, they worship free will, they hate this. They hate this. They hate that God decides what happens, because they want to be the one that decides what happens. And this whole thing, chapter 8 and 9, is the opposite of that. Clearly, without a doubt. All you got to do is understand a few Greek words. And then the picture becomes clear. He wishes he didn't have to go through the suffering that's all through chapter 8 on account of his kinsmen. See that? It's not hard.